Well, look who's back for another round of Let's See If This Is As Good As They Claim. Today, we're diving into a video titled The Best Device We've Ever Reviewed, from the ever-enthusiastic Just Josh. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time someone claimed something was the best, I'd have enough to buy a decent cup of coffee, instead of the swamp sludge I usually drink. I can already smell the overhyped nonsense wafting through my bog. But hey, maybe this device is a true gem hidden beneath the layers of marketing fluff, or maybe it's just another shiny piece of junk that'll end up in the back of the drawer next to my collection of expired bug spray. Either way, grab your popcorn, or whatever it is you kids snack on these days, and let's see if Just Josh can impress this old toad. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that jazz. You know the drill. Let's hop into it.
In 5 years of making laptop videos, I've covered at best 2 blockbuster product launches, Apple's revolutionary M series and AMD's Ryzen Zen launch. Well, today I think could be a third.
Ah yes, the classic "this could be a game changer" line. It's like a broken record at this point. Every time a new gadget comes out, we hear the same old song. I mean, how many revolutionary products can one person claim to have seen? If I had $1 for every time someone said that, I could buy a decent swamp for myself. Let's hope this one actually lives up to the hype, or we're in for another round of disappointment.
Third, you see, with me is the updated Asus C-Flow 13, a gaming tablet that by itself is an excellent device. But what truly catapults it into the stratosphere is AMD's new Ryzen AI Max Plus 395 processor. A stupidly named product, but a breakthrough one nonetheless. Well, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know what's coming. I value your time, and I'm not going to make you watch this whole video to find out why. Instead, I'm going to tell you right now. This AMD processor is very special. It is a mega powerful APU combining a huge number of powerful Zen 5 CPU cores with a large number of RDNA GPU cores. It delivers stellar single-core performance, insane multi-core CPU performance, and its GPU performs like a 100-watt RTX 4060. Now, unlike laptops with a dedicated GPU, this device is smaller. It has substantially less fan noise, and its memory is unified. You can assign up to 75% of system memory to the GPU. Now, if you
The classic unified memory spiel. It sounds fancy, but let's be real. How many people actually need to assign 75% of their memory to the GPU? Unless you're rendering a blockbuster film or gaming like your life depends on it, most folks just want their devices to work without sounding like a jet engine. It's like they're trying to sell us on a feature that only a select few will ever use. But hey, if it keeps the noise down, I guess that's a win for the rest of us trying to enjoy some peace and quiet in our bogs.
If you thought that all this performance came at the cost of power efficiency, you'd be dead wrong. This processor is the most power efficient chip we've ever tested outside of Apple's M series. As a whole, we believe that the Flow Z13 is as competitive as our laptop of the year for the last 3 years, the MacBook Pro 14 with a Pro-level processor. It isn't as power efficient, but it is as powerful. And unlike that laptop, you can play the latest AAA games, run Linux, or use it as a tablet. Look, I could mention many other factors like its great display or stunning premium chassis, but let's dive in. We're going to start with a quick run-through of what this new Ryzen AI Max Plus 395 processor is. It has a whopping 16 cores and 32 threads, but what makes this processor even more unique is its 40 RDNA 3.5 graphics cores. For comparison, the HX370 and the G16 only has 16 GPU cores. To support all the extra cores, this processor has a very large amount of cache at 80 megabytes. This makes this new AMD APU more similar to
The classic more cache equals better performance argument. It's like saying a bigger bod means more room for all my grumpy thoughts. Sure, it sounds good, but does it really translate to a noticeable difference in everyday use? I mean, unless you're crunching numbers or gaming like a maniac. Most folks just want their devices to work without a hitch. Let's see if this cache talk actually leads to something impressive, or if it's just more hot air.
More similar to Apple's M series of processors versus the regular ones in Windows laptops, which by the way is one of the reasons we keep making this comparison. So how does the Flow Z13 perform? In Geekbench, which tests a variety of common performance tasks, it does very well. It gets over 3,000 points in single core, beating out all current-gen processors other than the Max. In multi-core, the AI Max Plus smashes Windows competitors by a whopping 5,000 points. It even beats out the M4 Pro 12-core. This is super impressive. Now, when we move over to Cinebench, which tests the device's performance when maxed out, it is an even better story. In multi-core, it beats out every competitor, often by a huge margin. It even beats out the higher-end MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Pro 14-core chip. Over a 10-minute continuous Cinebench run, which we do to test thermal throttling, its small size is likely having an effect. The Flow did drop its performance a bit, but it's still a phenomenal performer.
So it dropped performance a bit but is still a phenomenal performer. Classic marketing speak. It's like saying, sure, I may have lost a leg in that bog, but I can still hop around just fine. If it's dropping performance under pressure, that's a red flag. Not a badge of honor. Let's hope it can keep up when the real workload hits, or we might be looking at a flashy device that can't handle the heat.
Now, one of the reasons that this processor is able to do so well in such a small chassis is its power efficiency. It draws less power than the tough A14 and the much larger Predator Helios Neo 14, yet, as I showed you, it performs better. When we drill down into our scatter plot, you can see that its power efficiency is way better than any Windows laptop processor. The way this graph works is that you want to see high performance for as little power draw as possible. The 4 pink dots are for this new device in silent, performance, turbo and manual modes. What you can see is that this processor pulls around the same wattage as the Ryzen 9 HX370 chip in our much larger G16, but performs significantly better. When we compare this processor to Intel's brand new Arrow Lake H, which will be found in similar sized laptops, it is a complete murder scene. Not even remotely close. As usual though, Apple still wins here, but
A complete murder scene. Now that's a dramatic way to put it. It sounds like Intel's new chip is getting absolutely wrecked in this comparison. But let's not forget, Apple always seems to have that edge, doesn't it? It's like they're the top dog in the tech yard. And everyone else is just trying to catch up. Still, it's nice to see AMD making strides, even if they're not quite at the top of the food chain yet. Let's see if they can keep this momentum going or if they'll just end up as another footnote in the tech history books.
Apple still wins here, but this processor is clearly number 2, and number 1 if you don't want a Mac. Now, this processor does not seem to follow the same diminishing marginal returns as others, meaning if it is placed in a larger laptop with a more robust cooling solution, it will probably do even better. According to AMD, it can be fed up to 120 watts. This also makes us extremely excited for AMD's upcoming Fire range of laptop processors with Vcache. That one should perform even better. Now, a more efficient chip tends to lead to less heat, fan noise and better battery life. When it comes to heat you feel, the Flow has an additional advantage. It is a tablet with a detachable keyboard. As the processor is behind the screen, not underneath the keyboard, you feel no heat during intense gaming or coding sessions, and that is just wonderful. The tablet's backside, where you may put your hands to adjust its angle, it does get a bit toasty. When it comes to fan noise, it was very reasonable, even on its turbo mode. As I showed you, this laptop beats out every other competing laptop in CPU tasks, yet it is the quietest. In fact, we often advise you to game on the
Now that's a refreshing twist. A laptop that can handle intense CPU tasks without sounding like a swarm of angry bees. That's practically a miracle in the tech world. If it can keep the noise down while delivering top-notch performance, that's a serious win. It's like finding a quiet spot in the woods where you can actually hear yourself think. If they can pull this off consistently, they might just have a real contender on their hands. Let's see if it holds up under pressure.
you to game on the laptop's default balanced performance mode for a trade-off of a minimal drop in performance but a big drop in fan noise. You don't have to do that here. You'll also be pleased to know that when you do hear the fans going, they aren't high-pitched or annoying like the Zephyrus G16. Let's talk a bit more about manual mode. Now, we did run the fans at max for this mode so that you can see the device's best possible performance. You may be able to dial back the fans without affecting performance. Check this out though. When we compare the Max Plus in the Flow to Intel's 14900HX in the much larger Strix 18, this device draws half as much power, has similar fan noise, yet has the same performance. What a phenomenal win for AMD. Now, if you're wondering what this laptop is like in light use, you may hear a little bit of fan noise on its default performance mode. That's if you're in a quiet room. If you do switch to silent mode, it's inaudible. Good news here. Again, unlike most laptops, this one still performs well in silent mode.
Now that's impressive. A laptop that can still perform decently in silent mode. It's like finding a toad that can croak quietly while still catching flies. Most devices would buckle under the pressure, but this one seems to have found a sweet spot, if it can balance performance and silence. That's a real win for anyone who values a peaceful workspace. Let's see if it can keep this up in the long run.
If you're planning to do performance tasks while unplugged, you won't be able to run the Flow on its highest turbo or manual modes. In fact, its performance is heavily throttled. But that's the case on most Windows gaming laptops, and this one, it still has good performance. After running Cinebench on a loop for 30 minutes, the Flow drained over half of its battery. Look, running performance tasks while unplugged is really only something a MacBook does well. The Helios Neo 14 and the Zephyrus G16 appear competitive with MacBooks, but when you look at their unplugged performance, you get the full picture. In lighter tasks like playing a Netflix movie for 4 hours over Wi-Fi, the Flow does pretty well, only draining around 30% of its battery. This is similar to the TUF A14, which has the same resolution display and an AMD Zen 5 processor. When looking at a full battery rundown, the Flow lasted around 12 hours. This is the simplest of our battery tests though, as it just plays a downloaded movie on a loop. Let's talk GPU performance. When we look at TimeSpy, a DirectX 12 gaming benchmark, the integrated graphics in this processor is on par.
Now we're getting into the juicy stuff. GPU performance, integrated graphics that can hold their own in a benchmark. That's not something you hear every day. If it's stacking up well against dedicated GPUs, that's a big deal. It's like finding a toad that can actually leap higher than you'd expect. Let's see if this integrated setup can keep impressing or if it will flop when the real gaming starts.
Processor is on par with an RTX 4060 in our TUF A14. Now, we have seen RTX 4060s in laptops perform better, but that's in much larger laptops like the TUF F16. This GPU though, it isn't quite as powerful as an RTX 4070. As a representation of what to expect with hidden fan noise while gaming, you can see that the Flow remained cool with minimal fan noise on turbo mode. Now, on its highest fan settings on manual mode, it actually had the same fan noise as the TUF A14 on its turbo mode, so that's really good. Looking at Port Royal, a ray tracing benchmark, this is one of the few places where the graphics in this new processor just really underwhelm. It is significantly behind an NVIDIA.
Oh, there it is, the moment of truth. Underwhelming graphics performance in a ray tracing benchmark. That's a tough pill to swallow. It's like showing up to a race with a fancy car that just can't keep up. If it's lagging behind NVIDIA's offerings, that's going to be a hard sell for gamers looking for that extra visual flair. Let's hope it can redeem itself in other areas, or it might just end up as another almost in the crowded laptop market.
NVIDIA RTX 4060 for this type of processing. When we move over to Wildlife Extreme, which is a cross-platform benchmark and therefore compatible with macOS, the Flow is back to doing very well. It performs around the same as the TUF A14 and the MacBook Pro 14 with a higher-end M4 Pro 20-core GPU. Now let's take a look at some actual gaming benchmarks, but before we do that, we want to go over an important configuration. Our Flows were all set to a max of 4GB of system memory available to the integrated GPU. For all our GPU testing, we had to up this. You can do this either in Armoury Crate or the BIOS. 8GB is recommended by Asus. They did inform us that they do plan to have this set as default in the future. Let's take a look at Cyberpunk. We benchmarked it at 2560 by 1600 ultra settings with ray tracing and DLSS disabled while on turbo mode. The Flow got a respectable 52 FPS. This is a little lower than we'd like to see, but this is at max settings. Turn those down and you'll be fine. In Monster Hunter Wilds, we benchmarked it at 2560 by 1600 ultra settings. It gets a score of 13,512 and an average FPS of 40. Look, same deal as Cyberpunk. If you turn the settings down, it's going to be fine. In Forza, we benchmarked it at 2560 by 1600 ultra settings and we were able to get 78 frames per second on average. Now for real-world gaming, we gamed for several hours on Cyberpunk, Space Marine 2 and Fortnite. We ran all the games at the
Finally, some real-world gaming results. It's always interesting to see how these benchmarks translate into actual gameplay. Averages of 54 FPS in Cyberpunk and 88 in Fortnite. Not too shabby, but it sounds like you might need to tweak settings for a smoother experience in more demanding titles. It's like trying to catch flies in the bog. Sometimes you just have to adjust your approach. Let's hope the performance holds up over those hours of gaming, or it might be a frustrating experience.
All the games at the Flow's native resolution of 2560 by 1600 on medium or equivalent settings while on turbo mode. We felt that this is the kind of settings that actual gamers would use, a balance of quality, high enough frame rates, and reasonable fan noise. During this time, we ran CapFrameX to capture the Flow's performance. In Cyberpunk, we saw an average of 89 FPS and 1% lows of 54. In Space Marine 2, we saw an average of 40 FPS and 1% lows of 25. Space Marine is a very new and intensive game, so this one you'll probably have to lower the resolution. In Fortnite, we saw an average of 88 FPS and 1% lows of 52. During these gaming sessions, there were a couple of things we appreciated. For example, the device blows hot air out the top, so it doesn't blow the hot air on your mouse hand. The tablet form factor was also a big win while gaming. Firstly, there are no heat-generating components under the keyboard, so it always felt cool to the touch. Secondly, many gamers, including yours truly, like to use mechanical keyboards.
Ah, the joys of mechanical keyboards. Nothing quite like the satisfying click of keys while gaming. It's like music to a toad's ears, if toads had ears for music, that is. Plus, having a cool surface to rest your hands on while you're in the heat of battle. That's a game changer. It's the little things that make a big difference, especially when you're trying to stay focused and not turn into a sweaty mess. Let's see if this device can keep delivering those little wins.
Keyboards. On a normal gaming laptop, you'd have to be docked or push the entire laptop back. On the Flow, you just detach the keyboard and replace it with a mechanical one. Sierra also mentioned, by the way, that she would probably just take the keyboard off and use a controller. Now, I'll talk about creative workloads, which, like gaming, we tested on turbo mode. For video editing, in Puget's Premiere Pro benchmark, the Flow performed around the same as a MacBook Pro 14 with the higher-end M4 Pro 20-core GPU, but behind laptops with an RTX 4060 or above. Taylor did try editing one of our videos and found the experience quite positive, a big upgrade from the integrated GPUs of other Windows laptops. In Puget's DaVinci Resolve benchmark, it did even better. This time on par with competing RTX 4060 laptops and even beating out the Neo 14 with an RTX 4070. Resolve does tend to run very well on AMD processors. Moving on to Puget's Photoshop benchmark, it does fantastically. It beat out all competing laptops with an RTX 4060 and 4070, and came close to the higher-end MacBook.
Now that's impressive. Beating out laptops with RTX 4060 and 4070 in Photoshop. That's a serious flex for the Flow. It's like showing up to a toad race and hopping past all the competition. If it can handle creative workloads this well, it's definitely carving out a niche for itself. Let's see if it can keep this momentum going in the final stretch.
And MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Pro 20-core GPU. We have been informed by a Puget rep that the reason laptops with dedicated GPUs do poorly here is likely due to the way that laptops allocate power between the CPU and GPU. If you feed more power to a dedicated GPU on a laptop, it may come at the expense of power to the CPU. Alright, one of the areas that I was most excited to test was data science and AI. These folks want a powerful GPU and lots of graphics memory. The GPU in this processor can access up to 75% of system memory, and you can get up to 128 GB in the Flow. I loaded up Deepseek R1, and for comparison, I also loaded it on a MacBook Pro 14 and a Zephyrus G16 with NVIDIA's RTX 4070. I asked the model to solve the standard wolf, goat, cabbage test, one of those problems where you need to move something across the river but you can't leave certain things behind. All three laptops were able to quickly complete a simple 7 billion parameter model. They did it.
Now we're diving into some serious data science. All three laptops handling a 7 billion parameter model. That's impressive. It's like watching a trio of toads leap across a pond. Some might be faster, but they're all making it to the other side. The Flow's Athern holding its own here is a good sign. Especially with that GPU memory allocation. Let's see how it stacks up when the parameters get even heavier.
Did it in around 3 minutes or less. However, out of the 3 attempts, only the MacBook Pro was able to solve the problem, and it did it only once. After this, I tried upping the difficulty to a 14 billion parameter model. Now we can see some interesting findings. Both the Flow and the MacBook were able to solve the problem, twice each, although they did take longer to do it. On average, the MacBook was faster. The G16 with NVIDIA's RTX 4070 did not complete a test in under 30 minutes.
Ouch, that's a rough showing for the Giscuits. Not completing the test in under 30 minutes. That's like showing up to a race and just sitting there while everyone else zooms past. It's clear that the Flow and MacBook are holding their own, but it's interesting to see how the RTX 4070 isn't delivering the expected performance in this scenario. It's a reminder that specs are on everything. Sometimes it's all about how the components work together. Let's see if this trend continues.
Minutes. When I look at VRAM usage, I think I know why. On the Flow, I could see that the model was using 13.5 gigs of VRAM. On the G16, its RTX 4070 is limited to 8, so it likely couldn't keep enough data in VRAM. To confirm this, I loaded up the model on the much bigger SCAR 16 with an RTX 4090 and 16 gig of VRAM. It was able to run the model, no surprises, and it was actually the fastest on average, but its answers were wrong. Anyway, this shows a big advantage to chips like the AI Max in the Flow and Apple's M series, where their GPUs can have access to lots of memory. Alright, testing out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the device. Everyone here unanimously felt that the Flow Z13 looks really special. The metal chassis has this premium aesthetic with a fusion of industrial design cues. There is this really cool window at the back where you can see the motherboard lit up by customizable RGB. When it comes to the size and weight, look, I don't want anyone to be surprised here. This is a thick and heavy gaming tablet. It weighs a little more than a MacBook Pro 14, but it is very well built. This extends to the tablet's kickstand, which is sturdy. It can be adjusted to a wide variety of positions, even close to 90 degrees. You'll definitely be able to set it at the right angle for you. Once you finish using the tablet, the keyboard becomes the cover just like on most of these devices. Looking around it, the power button is on the right side of the screen, but it is recessed so you won't accidentally mispress it. The volume up and down rocker and the command center buttons though are not. In addition to the buttons, there is a USB-A port on the right side lower down. On the left side you get two USB-C 4.0 ports that support power delivery and up to 100 watts of
2 USB-C 4, 0 ports that support power delivery. Now that's a solid feature. It's like having a couple of extra hands to help you out when you're juggling all your devices. With the ability to deliver up to 100 watts, you can charge your gadgets while using them. That's a win for anyone who hates being tethered to a wall outlet. Let's see if the rest of the device keeps up with this level of practicality.
Up to 100 watts of charging. You get an HDMI port and Asus's proprietary charging port. This device does come with a 200-watt charger, so you won't be able to get its full performance using just USB-C charging, at least not until these kind of devices come with Thunderbolt 5. Other than this, you get a microSD card reader. Look, it has a good variety of ports, but we were disappointed with their placement. Firstly, all three charging-capable ports are on the left side. It means you'll have to run a cable around the back if you're plugging into something that is on the other side, which is just inconvenient. Secondly, many ports are far up the tablet, it could cause cable strain, and it just looks messy. When it comes to the display, I switched to this device straight after reviewing the ThinkPad T14s. Boy was I shocked at how much better this IPS panel is. It is very bright at 560 nits, it has a fast refresh rate 180Hz, and a wide color gamut. Its resolution of 2560 by 1600 spread across its 13.4-inch panel is perfect. It gives it a very
A bright 516Hz display with a 180Hz refresh rate. Now that's what I'm talking about. It's like stepping out of a dim forest into a sunlit meadow. The resolution of 2560 by 1600 on a 13.4-inch panel sounds fantastic too. Perfect for those who want crisp visuals without straining their eyes. If it delivers on color accuracy and responsiveness, this could be a real treat for gamers and creators alike. Let's see if it holds up in real-world use.
very high PPI of 225. So even small text for coders or Excel warriors looks nice and crisp. It is a touchscreen with pen support, which just really makes this device very versatile. Students, artists, and the like, you guys are going to love it. We didn't detect any PWM flickering when raising or lowering the brightness, which is good. Backlight bleed on our production unit was very minimal. Our only minor issue is that its panel is glossy. This does make the content look nice and vibrant, but in a very bright environment, you'll probably notice some reflections. The keyboard is very good for a tablet. It has 1.7mm of key travel, the keyboard deck is very sturdy, and it just feels delightful to type on and look at. That's because its keyboard is of course RGB lit. The trackpad is okay. It is a mechanical one and tracking is accurate enough, but its click is loud and it does require some pressure. I would have loved to see it come with a haptic one. The speakers are pretty decent. The sound they produce is pleasing, but they don't get loud and they completely lack bass. Take a listen.
The classic speaker dilemma. Decent sound but lacking in volume and bass. That's like a toad trying to croak but only managing a whisper. It's nice to have good audio for gaming or media, but if it can't fill the room or your ears, what's the point? Let's hope they at least sound better than my bog after a rainstorm.
Here's how the 1440 webcam on the Flow looks and sounds. Honestly, not great. Colors are way off and it does look a little grainy. The SSD in the laptop is upgradable, easily in fact by a panel on the back. The memory though is soldered, but it is faster. To test Linux, we booted up Fedora 41 from a USB key. It was a mostly positive story. Wi-Fi, brightness up and down and trackpad, webcam, all of them worked. The only thing that didn't was Bluetooth and the speakers. Hopefully with a full install and update they will, but they didn't out of the box. Alrighty, let's wrap. The model that we tested with 32GB of memory and 1TB of storage has a starting price of $2,300 here in the USA. Now there is a cheaper model with a worse processor and more expensive models with more memory.
The classic pricing game, starting at $2,300 for the base model. That's a hefty chunk of change, especially when you consider the cheaper options with lesser processors. It's like being offered a fancy toadstool in the woods. Looks great, but you better be ready to pay for it. And let's not even get started on the more expensive models. If you're shelling out that kind of cash, you better hope it delivers on all fronts. Let's see if it's worth the investment.
Models with more memory, up to a whopping 128GB. Overall, we feel the pricing is reasonable for what you get. As we showed you, this device gives you the performance of a high-end M4 Pro 14-core CPU and an NVIDIA RTX 4060 GPU. A great combination, especially since its power efficiency allows it to be placed in such a small device. Sure, if you're purely gaming, you can find a more powerful gaming laptop for the money, but no laptop is as do-it-all as this device. You can play the latest games on it, you can use it as a tablet, you can edit videos or photos on it, you can code on it, or you can do data science work. It's compact and portable, yet it is still very premium. Look, we've had 4 reviewers spend weeks testing our Flow Z13s, and every single one of us stood up and said, hey, this is a really special device, and I could see myself actually buying one.
Well, when 4 reviewers all agree that a device is really special, you know it's worth paying attention to. It sounds like the Flow Z13 has really made an impression, and that's no small feat in the crowded tech market, if they can see themselves actually buying one. That says a lot about its overall value and performance. Maybe this little toad has finally found a gem in the tech swamp.
And folks,
Well, here we are at the end of this tech adventure, and let me tell you, I wasn't exactly jumping for joy throughout the ride. Just Josh took us on a giddy little journey to unveil what he deemed the best device we've ever reviewed. Spoiler alert, it's about as common as a decent cup of coffee in my neck of the woods. Hard to find and often disappointing, I went in with the usual skepticism, and surprise, surprise, nothing ruffled my croaky feathers about this gadget extravaganza. Claims of a game changer and boasts of phenomenal performance were as predictable as the rain ruining my day in the bog. I mean, who doesn't love a classic more cash equals better spiel that doesn't necessarily pan out for the average user? Enjoying peace and quiet in my swamp is more of a priority than chasing after flashy marketed features. But let's give credit where it's due. The low noise levels and impressive initial performance under pressure did raise an eyebrow or two. Just when I thought this was yet another shiny paperweight heading for the back of the drawer, I was mildly impressed, like finding a particularly magnificent lily pad among the muck. In conclusion, while the pricing seems more inflated than my sense of optimism, that slight glimmer of potential with the Flow Z13 had me almost convinced, though I won't be giving up my swamp for it anytime soon, if it can truly keep impressing in the real world. Perhaps it's gotten a little more hop in its leap than I initially gave it credit for. Remember, folks, whether you're knee-deep in tech discussions or just watching to see this old toad roast the latest nonsense, if you enjoyed this video, or at the very least, tolerated my grumbles, make sure to clobber that like button and subscribe for more of my uncensored rants. Until next time, keep your bogs clean and your expectations low. It's a crazy world out there.